Hi, friends! Happy Halloween! I thought about wearing a whole Halloween costume today, but then I thought the VOD is going to live on YouTube forever and it's only going to be Halloween one day. So I just put my wizard robes on and my Alexa shirt. How are we doing today? Welcome to Alexa Developer Office Hours. We have some guests on here today. They're going to talk to us about Visual Studio Code and its use as an IDE in your Alexa skill development. But before we get to our guests, I just want to make a quick reminder that tomorrow we also have a special edition of a Tech Talk happening, which is going to be LLM powered Alexa skills. I think there's been a lot of anticipation about this. So if you want to tune in tomorrow to join a fireside chat about what we're working on in the LLM space and what we might be doing in the future or what's in progress, tune in tomorrow. It's actually at 10 Pacific. So if right now is 9 Pacific for you, it's going to be like 1 o'clock p.m. my time. But you can go to that website I just linked and add a calendar reminder if you don't want to miss it. And if you do miss it, they're still available on demand after the fact. So good morning from Pennsylvania. That's where I am. I'm in Pennsylvania as well. Thank you for joining us today. So let's go ahead and bring on our guests. Tyler and Yampu, I'm going to bring you onto the stage here. And welcome to the show. Could I have you introduce yourselves, please?
Yeah, I can go first.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Hey folks, yeah, my name's Yampu. Working on the Alexa Skill Kit team. Mainly all kind of tools for building skills. That was it. Tyler?
Yep. I work on the same team as Yampu, the Alexa tooling team. Yeah, tools. Some of them probably you use if you're a skill developer already, like the CLI, VS Code. We own the hosted skills infrastructure and like the code tab in the developer console, things like that. So.
Awesome stuff. So last week we had a radio skills kit talk, which is our no code solution. And so I decided to do a total 180 and have you all talking about the deep code solutions for those of us that are really into coding and love to write code. So we're going to talk a little bit about using Visual Studio Code as an IDE. What kind of tips and tricks do you have for people managing their skills in Visual Studio Code? Do we want to go straight to the demo or do we want to just do a little background first? Do you want to go to
Yeah, I guess we can talk a little bit about it.
Sure.
If you haven't used, I imagine some of the people here have already used the extension at some point, but the VS Code extension basically lets you can create skills, you can kind of manage some of your skill artifacts that transfer between the ADC, like deployment and your local development environment. But like the real killer feature, I think, is the ability to debug your Lambda code and develop your skill code locally and kind of step through it and things. And I'll show you how to do that. So yeah, that's a high level what it can do. Yeah.
I know that it's a big jump in terms of usability to go from trying to code in the developer console and trying to code in VS Code. Particularly myself, I'm primarily a Python developer. And I think one of the biggest challenges of, not that our dev console isn't terrific in a lot of ways, but the biggest challenges is like indents, because Python's very sensitive about that. So if you have an indent error somewhere in the console, it's really, really hard to see exactly where that is. But in VS Code, it's really easy to see where the indent might be off. So I think that's one disadvantage that like makes it so much better as an environment than using the developer console. Developer console is great when you're just starting, and honestly, it's not that bad for Node, but I struggle with Python in that console because of that one little problem, because it'll error out. It's really, really sensitive about it too. Like if you have an extra white space, it'll error.
Yeah, I think if for all developers, the IDE is kind of your home base, right? It's highly customized to your preferences. You have all the extensions you like installed for your language of choice and things. And I think that's the biggest advantage, is you just get to kind of code on your home turf and take advantage of all that.
And I linked in the sidebar the VS Code extension GitHub if you want to check out the extension. For some reason, YouTube didn't get that link, but we'll try it again in a second. So sorry for if I type anything spammy, but on our GitHub, which I can link as well, there's the VS Code extension and other things that you might. So here's Alexa samples GitHub. We actually have multiple GitHub locations. So look us up on GitHub if you want to like see what all is in there. But you've got the link directly to github.com/Alexa, and that's going to have that toolkit in there as well as some other stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and feel free. I know I've seen some familiar faces in the comments section, but yeah, we have people contribute issues and fixes to us, and we try to get to those when we can, and we do monitor it. We see everything that comes through there. So yeah, if you have issues or if you want to contribute fixes, you can contribute them right to the repository, and yeah, and we'll try to get those looked through and integrated as quickly as possible. Usually.
Yeah, we do our best to do this in an open source kind of way, right? So if people really, something about them that bugs them, they just want to they just want to edit the code themselves or make a pull request, they could do that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely.
Nice, cool. So let's go ahead and put it up on the screen. I think you're going to talk a little bit about the skill flow in the Ask toolkit.
Yep. Yeah. So this is the I pulled up the extension page. First of all, you can if you don't have it installed, you can install it from the extensions menu on the left side in your IDE. And then yeah, you'll get this little button over here that looks like an Alexa icon, and that's the toolkit. And it brings up all the operations that you can do on the left here. It's pretty limited to start with, but that's because I don't have a skill open. So let me go ahead and create one. I'll just name it office hours demo October. And then choose a path. I'll just drop it in some random folder on my computer. And this will initiate, this is going to be an Alexa hosted skill by default. I'll go ahead and issue a create. It should take about a minute. It doesn't take too long. But yeah, once we do that, I'll show you the few steps you'll need to really get to the live debugging, because that's kind of what I want to show off. But there's several other things you can do with your skill, and I'll show you a little bit too about how you can manage some of your skill artifacts if you're moving between the dev console and VS Code, because the tools are kind of like suited to doing different tasks.
Yeah, I know that when you're Alexa hosted, sometimes you do have to jump back into that dev console and manipulate stuff in there. So it'd be great to talk a little bit about that flow for anybody who's run into that.
Yep. Yeah. I also
right now we're
think,
creating a skill.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see the status down here. But yeah, I'd mention I think the interaction model artifacts editing is much richer in the developer console. And of course, people probably use other tools to edit their APL and things like that. So this isn't the best environment for those, but I would say this is probably the best environment for working on your Lambda, on your skill code. So that's really where you get the bang for your buck.
So it looks like you've got it generated now.
Yep. So this is just a brand new template skill. So the first thing I'm going to do to get up and running is go into my interaction model, and I'm going to change the invocation name. Actually, that's okay. I'll just leave it as is. And then, yep. So let's go. Okay. So then I change back over to the extension, and you see this has changed contextually because I have a skill open now. You have a few different options. These are the buttons that I was going to highlight for kind of interacting with the dev console. You can click download for the skill manifest and interaction model if you've made changes in ADC, and it will download from the console whatever those relevant artifacts directly from the console. And then for the interaction model, you can click edit in console, and it'll open a link directly to your skill in the developer console if you want to go over there and edit it instead. There's some APL authoring and viewing utilities here, but what we're going to focus on right now is the test skill. So you can click open simulator, and it opens up this simulator, which is very similar to the one on the developer console. And then I'm going to I'll grab the exact invocation name so I don't mess this up. And then assuming I've done everything right, it should open the skill, and you get all your skill IO information right here. And then, yeah, so that's kind of how you get from like creating a skill all the way up to simulation locally. And next I'll show you how to kind of debug it.
So this replaces going directly to the developer console and doing all this because it builds your entire model, including you can change your invocation name from here. You can change all your interactions from here.
Yep. And the first thing there, we do have some setup steps. So you can, I'll try to get a link for that, but the getting started for VS Code steps on our wiki. But right now I'm going to get the 2 projects added to this that are necessary for the local debugging. These are also in the setup steps, these 2 commands. There's 2 packages you need to install. The Ask SDK local debug and Ask SDK model packages.
Is there a way to zoom in a little bit on that so we can see the text more clearly?
Yeah.
Let's get a little bit closer to it, I think. Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. Let me see if I can.
I know I've run into the same thing when I'm live coding. So I can't quite read it.
How do I zoom my screen?
We try Command plus.
That usually works.
Command plus.
Yeah.
Let me try that. There we go.
There
Perfect.
we go.
Yep. So there's a Ask SDK model package and an Ask SDK local debug package. So once you install those, they get added to your package.json file, and so they will get installed in your package when you go to start things. So now that those are installed, I can go ahead and go to the next step, which is adding the debug command to this project. So you go up to here to run and add configuration. It's going to be Node.js, but I think we also support this workflow for Python if you have a Python Lambda. Add configuration, and then you're going to select the whichever your language of choice is, the debugger configuration for that. And then whatever region you're developing in. For now, I'm going to select NA. And then you save this. And then what that does is adds a debug configuration over here in the run and debug menu. So now I have this debug Alexa skill option. So I'll select that and then run it. And it will spin up, it'll generate a token and then spin up the adapter, which is what we installed in the project.json. It basically tells the proxy service that you're running locally and to route any skill requests for that skill ID to this other location, which happens to be your local machine.
Interesting.
Yep. So the session by default lasts for an hour. That's how long it takes for this generated token to expire. So if you're developing over many hours, you may have to restart this. But yep. So now what I do.
And that's debugging the live skill. So if my skill was already up, all those requests would be coming locally so I could see them.
Yep. And it's kind of cool because the proxy service is universal. So I could go issue requests in ADC. I could issue them from Ask Dialog on a CLI somewhere. Any invocations to that skill ID, no matter what the source, will be routed to this session. So you can go simulate somewhere else if you don't like the skill simulation view in VS Code, or you want, like I know Jeff liked the voice output to the Alexa voice to speak back to him, so you can see how the skill sounded in the ADC. So you can do that if you want.
Cool. Well, this is nice because this video will live on YouTube as well. So if anybody needs to go back and reference what the process step by step was to see how to get to this screen, they can check out what you just did. So if I'm hosting my skill, Alexa hosted, this works. What about if I have a custom Lambda that I've spun up? Same thing?
Yeah. So yeah, there is a custom Lambda that's been a part of this skill. Excuse me. So let's see. Excuse me. Sorry.
Sorry.
So the cool thing you can do here is you can set a breakpoint in your Lambda, your local Lambda code. So say I set here in my launch request, and then I restart that. I think I'm already in the skill sandbox, so let me restart actually. So I actually hit the launch request itself. Yep. And so then, since you're in a debug session and the debugger for your given language is already running, it'll hit any breakpoints you set in your code here. So the really powerful thing about this is you get the full IDE experience of being able to break in handlers, inspect objects, drill into anything about the request or things like that. And then you can also, I could make like a change here. This request is modified. And then, if I go back in and I restart the simulator again, I don't need to restart the simulator. I just happen to be editing the launch request. So that's the only, I need to get out of sandbox session for that skill to hit the launch request again. So yeah, I've edited this, and then if I continue, did I not? I must not have saved it. Let me restart. But yeah, the message here is that it's hitting your local Lambda code, so you're able to step through things and debug.
Cool.
Yep.
Makes it easier to debug any problems that you might be having. And what kind of requests would I see coming through? Like pretty much anything that people hit, any intent that people hit, you're going to be able to see?
Yeah, I could do like the help intent. You could hit that. Like any custom intent you add here. Intent reflector. Yeah. Basically anything in your Lambda code, if you can trigger it from your skill simulation, you can break in it and inspect it. So
So I don't know if we've gone over everything, but let's just start from the top. What skill operations are available in this extension?
Yeah. So the generally you will be able to, you can create a skill. I showed you that. And then you can download in your skill manifest and interaction model and go to the console and edit them as well. You actually can add APL documents. We have a full viewport here for APL docs. So you can add like an image list to your project, and it will add it in here. And we have an APL editor and an APL preview window. Has actually like
very cool.
touch event simulation and things. Yeah, so you can simulate all of that. And there's actually like there is some extra setup you can do to get touch events working in the simulator view over here.
So this preview right here that you have now is just like a default preview that comes up when you add the APL?
Yeah, it's just like a template. But
it's actually pretty cool looking though. I dig it.
Yeah. And there's some snippets in here and things as well to help you build them. But like I think most people probably are using other tools to author their APL, but there is some capability here for doing the same thing.
So this will play nice with APL Ninja, cutting and pasting your APL into the Visual Studio, because I know most of the folks that are deep in APL are using APL Ninja to preview.
Yeah. Yep.
We also have some really good resources for APL on our Alexa Learning Lab as well, which I probably could pop up on the screen. But let's go to the chat. I've got a couple questions. Okay. I see from LinkedIn, thanks for the amazing demo. Very useful for upcoming Alexa developers. You are welcome. Join us anytime. We're here weekly. We will be going on a short holiday break, but we'll be back next year. We'll be doing other stuff, so we'll be here for a while, helping you with your Alexa development. And if you have any questions in the meantime, and we're not live on office hours, you can always join us in the Alexa Slack. That's always there and always available for you. Office hours we're only once a week, but we do have the Alexa Slack where you can join in. Going up a little bit, how can I test tasks which I've implemented in my custom skill? Is there a good way to test that in this? What do we mean by tasks?
Yeah, I'd like to clarify what task means, but
Yeah.
I mean, you can test anything that's implemented in your skill code, in your Lambda. We don't really make a whole lot of assumptions about that. So like, yeah, if you have a request that spins off into some custom code you've made, and you have it in somewhere in your skill code, presumably, because it's getting deployed with your skill.
Right.
Yeah, you can just break in it. Even if I had other files here, you could break in those because it's a full debug session. It doesn't have to be in your index.js. That's
Yeah,
just
you
happens to
just
be
click
the
on the
entry point.
side to add that breakpoint, right? And that'll add that breakpoint so you can see right there on the side. Yeah. We don't know what you mean by tasks, but if you have more specifics, we can clarify. Or if you've got something in your own skill that isn't working, that's causing you issues, there's a contact us button that you can use to contact. And what they'll do is it'll reach out to our developer advocacy team, and they'll look at they'll look at your code. Unless I'm missing that you can't test tasks not making for a published skill. Yeah. So your skill does have to be live in some cases for that to work. Custom tasks, yeah. Is that what you're asking about? Yeah, let us know. They have to be published to be a custom task.
Oh, sure. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see what they mean. Okay.
Yeah. Which means you have to go through cert and all that. So then you can test them. They have to be live.
Yeah.
So here's another question. How can I manage my skills if I'm developing a skill locally with VS Code, but also making changes to the same skill in the developer console? Because won't my code get out of sync if I do that? What's the best way to manage that?
Yeah. So, So basically, I guess it kind of varies if you're self-hosted or if you're using Alexa hosted, because you might have if you're self-hosted, you might have your code residing in some other Git repository. I think we do have like this deploy skill button that tracks if there are outstanding changes to the Git repo that you've committed somewhere else.
Okay.
This is especially useful for hosted skills because there's a Git repo that hosts your skill behind the scenes, and it might get desynced if you're making changes on ADC or somewhere else and locally. So this can help you get it back in sync. But really, I think the main useful thing will be, I think you'll probably most people will end up using ADC for editing their skill manifest or their interaction model, like their intents and slots and things like that. So yeah, I would heavily encourage the use of these download buttons for that, because you can just, I do that a lot. I'll make changes on ADC because I find the editors very useful to quickly spin up what kind of intents I want or what I want in those intents. And I'll just download them here.
The interface for adding like custom intents and especially going through like the existing intents is really useful on the developer console. So basically you go into the developer console, you do the menu based stuff, and then you click on that download, and that'll bring it to your desktop and sync it with the version that's on the console.
Yeah, and you can also click on this download and edit skill button, and it'll retrieve the list of skills for your developer account, and then you can download them locally too if you have skills that you've previously worked on in ADC or deployed via the CLI or things like that.
So it shows all your skills. So even if I didn't ever download the skill to my and work on it on my hard drive, I could click on that and download all my skills locally. Yeah. Very cool. Yep. Now I'm going to throw you for a loop because I've done this, but I know this is sometimes tricky. What about interacting with the public GitHub? Like, say I have a GitHub. I usually use the command line, so I sync that up with the additional. But is there a faster way?
I'd still probably. I mean, there is, like I said, there's this deploy skill button, but when you're working with something private like that, or not
Yeah.
private, but like non-hosted,
Right.
I probably would end up using the terminal for a lot of
Yeah.
those.
Yeah.
You have one kind of just embedded right here in the IDE, so I
Mhm.
lean on this all the time. I think most developers use the CLI for certain types of tasks.
Yeah. That's where I'd be typing git status all the time
Yeah,
and
yeah,
git
yep,
pull and all that stuff to make
yep.
sure that
That-
everything's. So there is a git though behind the scenes where this is already being pushed every time you push it up or pull it
Yeah.
down, as the case may be.
Right.
So
Yeah, and
in theory, version controls kind of built in with this.
yeah, it can be a little confusing, I guess, if you're just used to working with hosted skills on the ADC and you're not used to, because kind of there your whole skill is just in one place, right? But if you're working locally, you technically have a second Git repository that you've cloned from that behind the scenes Git repository that's hosting your skill. So you kind of have to be mindful of things getting out of sync. If you commit in one place, you need to make sure you push it. But yeah, that's kind of where I would just lean on either this deploy interface or more likely just your regular Git commands that you're used to using to push everything to keep it in sync if you make changes locally. But
and I noticed that, up there that it shows you the difference between your current branch, right? Because you haven't deployed any of this yet.
Right. Yeah,
right,
this hasn't been deployed. Yeah, well, technically I haven't deployed any of my changes. Technically, when it built the skill, it deployed it to the Git repo at that time, and then it clones it locally. So at the time that you create, you still have the initial version of the code in the hosted environment, but I've made a bunch of changes locally, so you're seeing all those right now.
And when you're doing the testing in the internal testing console with VS Code, do you always push it all the way up to the Lambda before you're testing, or am I actually running that locally?
No, it's actually hitting the local code. Yeah,
Okay,
like
so running locally. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because like this last time I had made this change, and then I opened it again, and I got that and I haven't pushed this code at any point, so it's actually hitting the local Lambda code.
So you don't actually have to deploy it to test it, which is kind of nice because, I know when I'm using the dev console, a lot of times it's like I have to wait for it to deploy and it kind of churns a little bit and then I go. And that wasn't like a very efficient pipeline for my initial, foray into when you're just doing an Alexa hosted skill in the dev console. So this seems like it's a little bit faster feedback for testing.
Yeah, it shortens the developer loop considerably. I feel like when you don't have to wait, you don't have to make a change deploy to see how it works. Like you can just make changes directly to your JS or your Python locally and see those immediately reflected. It's very nice.
Let's just look at the chat again real quick. So you can test tasks without making a part of public skill, which by the way is kind of annoying. Yeah, that's fair feedback. We'll put that in our notes. We're always trying to evolve the skills kit and how we adjust. Robert Tables, you could use Git hooks to automate some of that, I suppose. Maybe. Have you ever had any experience with using Git hooks to modify, update?
Yeah, not. Yeah, we've used Git hooks before for some things. I don't know in this context that we've experimented with that, but I don't see why you couldn't. You can trigger on all sorts of things. We have lots of Git commit triggers, for example, for code quality type extensions and things like that. So I don't see why you couldn't have it be more practical things like checking skill status and things like that.
And a valuable thing about this IDE experience is that all your other extensions that you use to make your life easier when you're writing code will be right there. So, however you like your code to be colored, however you like to linter to operate, all those things that make your life a little bit easier for coding.
Yep.
So for those who might just be joining us, we're talking to the team about the VS Code extension and some work on the developer console. And I think it may be worth it to review. If people have any issues with this, with the IDE, with how it's operating, if they run into any bugs or they have any feature requests, where's the best place to send that information?
Yeah, see if we can maybe drop a link, but to we have an open source repository on GitHub. Has outstanding issue queue that people have reported, all of our source. So if you have issues, or if you are industrious and want to issue any pull requests, if you have a fix you'd like to make, and we're not getting to it in a timely manner, we try to, but if somebody really wants to see something immediately, just issue a PR and we'll review it and get it merged in a release as soon as we can. Yeah.
So, talking about the second link that you posted as well, the debug adapter. This is to get that live Lambda debugging going.
Yeah, so that's the thing that a lot of people miss, I think. It's the step where I did these 2 npm install commands. So if you don't add these to your project properly, you won't be able to get this adapter running. And this is the thing that is basically running on your local machine, tells the proxy service to route all requests to your local machine, and then receives those and processes them. So if you don't have that running properly, the local debug won't work very well. So just make sure if you're going to try this out that you get.
Can we
both
zoom
of
in
these.
like one more step on that to make sure we can see it? Because those are, you have to type that exactly the way it is, npm install.
Yep. These 2 commands here, both of these npm install commands while you're in your skill project.
Okay. That'll bring us to that. That'll bring us that live debugger that is so valuable for debugging your Lambda code.
There's that, and then after that, there's an add configuration step we went over to add the button over here. But technically, this isn't super necessary. You can run this other ways, but this is by far the easiest way to do it. It's just to add the configuration, and it's all taken care of. So
it's a great tip. And you've also linked us the getting started code, the getting started documentation. Hopefully this link isn't so long that it'll break the YouTube channels. That'll link us to the getting started documentation for how to use the VS Code extension in the first place. Really straightforward though. Just go in, install it, and click on build a skill, and it'll build your nice empty skill.
Yep.
Now, what if I made a skill? It's Alexa hosted. It's on the dev console, and I want to migrate to VS Code. Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, I think the easiest way would be to do this button I briefly showed earlier, download and edit skill. It'll take your whatever Ask profile you've configured. It's basically your vendor ID, and it'll go check for whatever skills you have under your profile and list them here. And you can just click one and choose a location to save it, and then it will download it and then load it in here the same way as if I had created a fresh skill. So
perfect. And it builds it all with the correct folder structure and everything that you would need for the skill to be.
I think I was actually in I was
yeah
now I have an embedded skill, but it'll
skill
go
inside
to
a skill.
Yeah,
okay.
It'll go to the folder you selected or that you had currently context on. I kind of rushed through that, so it's now embedded in here, but yeah.
So what other is there any feedback you want to take from our user base, or what do you think is going to be the next? Is any cool features that are coming up that you can talk about that might change this experience?
None that I can really talk about yet. We're always open to feedback. I know on the team we think this is a pretty cool tool. We all use VS Code day to day for coding and things. So being able to code in your home environment is a big advantage. So I guess we're always open to feature requests and things that people would like to see, and we're curious if people are using this, how they're using it, successfully or unsuccessfully. So.
I would say VS Code is my favorite IDE. It's lightweight. It's got a lot of great extensions. It's pretty easy to use. I've completely ditched using full Visual Studio. It's just so much more bulky on my computer, and it puts its little tendrils everywhere. And VS Code is just so much lightweight and easier to use. So I've kind of completely ditched like the old school way of doing it. But are there other IDEs that you would recommend for folks who maybe aren't VS Code fans and want to try something else, or maybe they have another one that they use?
Yeah, kind of just the IDE is very language specific. I think
Mhm.
Visual Studio Code has the advantage of there's a lot of it being such an open platform. It has a lot of language support across many different languages. So, I mean, the two that it's very friendly towards the two that we
Right.
currently support, like Node and
Mhm.
and Python. So, you won't be able to use this extension anywhere but VS Code. I will say that. So, so it needs to be VS Code for this extension to work properly. But yeah, it kind of just depends on the user, what they like working in. If you're a Java developer, there are different IDEs for that.
Yeah.
IntelliJ, etc.
Yeah, I think I agree with you that right now for the languages that we most heavily support, VS Code's really a good choice. The toolkit makes it very easy to synthesize with whatever you're working on, and the actual dev tools for those languages are really robust in VS Code. So that's I think I recommend that for anybody who's getting started with Alexa development. If you're brand new to Alexa development and haven't tried it, the dev console is pretty quick and easy experience, especially since it kind of has a tutorial and walks you through. But the second you want anything a little bit more complicated, then you're probably going to be developing locally and testing locally.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Chat has quieted down, so I don't think we have a lot of questions today. I think that was a really straightforward, good demo. And yeah, I think it'll be really valuable for anybody who wants to double check how to do that Lambda testing later. To go back and look at the video and see and go through the process, because it's this little it's just that one step of getting that NPM right.
Yeah, and I'll say one other gotcha I was running into. I would make sure I would make sure that if your invocation name, if the default is change me or whatever the default one, if you have the specified one, make sure you make it something like meaningful, because if you don't change that, sometimes I've noticed it not working and you can get some undefined responses back from the simulator. But yeah, generally it should work pretty well out of the box. But
I know that when I'm using the dev console and I put an invocation name, it's entirely possible for me to get somebody else's skill, because it's actually hitting live. It's actually hitting live skills. That won't happen with this, right? Or will it?
It will.
Oh, okay. It can.
Yeah, it can. It can. It's basically if you don't hit the right invocation name, it just won't. There won't be a request forwarded down to your skill. But yeah. Like, I don't think you'll be hitting other people's skills, but you won't hit your skill.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'll hit other people's skills, which is kind of funny. But I don't. I think if you're testing locally, then it's only gonna either gonna hit your skill or not hit your skill, right? It's not gonna hit some random skill that seems similar. But importance to have a unique and good invocation name for your skill across the board, because it helps with discoverability of your skill. It helps with Alexa knowing which skill to trigger. And I mean, that does get tricky. That invocation names don't have to be unique per skill, but it's good to have a good idea of what you want it to be. I know that in my development, I've had to test, like, does this one work? Does that one work? No, it's not hearing that, so it's kind of but you can change it very easily in that one line. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I would just, one thing I'd double check if you're having issues and you're getting some undefined responses here, just make sure you have a good invocation name and try a deployment if you haven't.
The thing I always do is change the default error message, because if it's like there was a problem with the requested skills response, is there a problem with my skill response, or is there a problem with some other person's requested skill response? So I change it to, like, you're hitting your skill, but this is an error, and then like just to know that it's working, but it's not working.
I think that's good practice for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think having nice fallback errors for yourself, I think in general, is good practice. Yeah.
When you're debugging, like, having those error messages and those breakpoints is just all the most important thing, right? To have have error messages that are clear and understandable, because if it's just like error, something broke, it's like, I don't know what broke.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's where that's probably, I would say, the killer feature here is the debuggability that this adds, so that you can break and step through things. It kind of breaks that I'll add a bunch of log statements and then go run it and then parse the logs and try to figure out what happened loop. You can just step right through your code as it stands and see what happened. I think is, pretty powerful. That's kind of why we have IDs. So
For sure. So before we might be out of topic, but before we go, I want to ask, does anybody do anything for Halloween? Because we aren't. We're handing out candy. I'm gonna watch some scary movies later tonight.
What about you, Yampu? Anything?
No.
We haven't heard from you too much, but yeah, let us know. You got any plans? Do you hand out candy? We finally got the full-size candy bars here.
Oh
I'm
my
so
gosh.
excited to be the
Wow.
full-size candy
You're gonna
bar
be the
house.
house then.
I know. I'm so
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah.
we wanted to do it. Now that we actually this is our house. We just bought it last year, like around this time last year.
Mhm.
So we decided to be the full-size candy bar house. But we have a restaurant supply store not far from here, so you can just go
Excellent.
buy like giant sleeves of candy.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, I got a question in the chat. I was surprised to find that the command Alexa disables some routine name works fine on a USA account, but does not work in a UK account. I looked for a doc and could not find any. Can you point me to any doc describing international differences in what routine voice commands and API functions are available in various countries worldwide? I don't think our current guests know the answer to that, but I bet you somebody behind the scenes in DAG has a documentation that they could point you to about different invocations worldwide. And that's really, really interesting. Disable some routine name works in USA but does not work in UK. I wonder if it's about routines in specific. Let's see. Somebody let us know if there's different stuff, different responses for different routines in different countries. How do I delete a routine? You can go to the Alexa app and delete the routine there. If you have a routine that you want to delete, but maybe you can't do it with a voice command, which I can see if you can delete it in your app because that should work. But we'll see if there's any documentation about international commands versus. I'm surprised too because UK, US is usually not that big of a difference, but
Right.
maybe they're probably.
Yeah. That's usually a pretty well supported region, so that is kind of surprising.
Yeah, but definitely go into the app and delete it if you can't delete it from the voice command. Dana says, voice says, prepping for a colonoscopy. That is scary.
Oh no.
That's a scary Halloween.
Yeah.
Scary
Man.
Halloween. We always have candy ready to house by 2 puppies first Halloween. Aww.
That is adorable.
Hopefully they won't bark at the trick-or-treaters.
Yeah.
Get
Are you dressing them up?
Yeah, dress up the puppies. What are the puppies wearing for Halloween?
Yeah. We'll be doing
any...
something similar. My wife and I will hand out candy.
Yeah. I usually try to put on spooky music or something, but I don't know what my setup is going to be like here this year. New house, new rules.
Yeah.
We didn't decorate or anything, and I've always wanted to like be the Halloween house, but I just get so busy. And then maybe for Christmas,
it does take some time.
We'll decorate and figure out how to make it like. Somebody down the street from us does have the giant skeleton though.
Those are awesome. I always that's like the house in the neighborhood, right? With the giant yard decoration. It's great.
They're both wearing hot dog costumes. Oh my gosh, that's so cute. That's so cute.
Love it. Yep.
I'm lingering a little bit to see if we have any other questions, but my way we'll look into if you have questions later and we're not live, join us on the Slack. I'll put that address up one more time so y'all can see the Alexa Design /Slack. This is where we have lots of folks that are willing to answer those questions, and I bet you there'll be other folks in the UK that have answers to that question as well. But I'm surprised there is a workaround to delete the routine. But yeah, maybe there's a couple things that don't work in some regions that do work in other regions. It does vary from region to region worldwide. Usually, just by the fact that we're US based, new features get rolled out in US and then they kind of propagate. But a lot of times we support everywhere, so it just depends on the feature. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in today, and thank you for giving us that demo. Really useful stuff. I hope everybody out there, if you haven't done it yet, give VS Code a shot for this development. Unless you already have another IDE you vastly prefer, I just think it's a great experience writing code, and I don't think I would go back working with like full Visual Studio. Even I thought was like kind of a beast to work on. So it's just nice because you can fit it on a thumb drive, take it with you, download all your code from Git, and just go to town. Pretty good stuff.
Yep.
Folks, see you next week. We'll be back same time, same channel, but tune in tomorrow as well for our Tech Talk. It's going to be a really good one, and we hope you'll all join us for that. So happy Halloween, happy starting of Thanksgiving season, or wherever you whatever holidays you celebrate, wherever you are. Because I know Canada already had their Thanksgiving because they do it back to back with Halloween, which we always have ours the month later. And then, then the Christmas season starts. The year just goes by so fast. Talk to you all soon.
Happy Halloween. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.